A word of prayer as we embark on this. So let's bow our heads. Dear Father in heaven, as we think about this topic, we pray for your guidance, for your spirit, for your wisdom, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. I was off in, I guess it was Connecticut, doing a series of meetings on health. The lady approached me after the presentation and she says, Dr. Clark, how do I shrink my liver? Well, I'd never had anybody ask such a puzzling question before. Shrink your liver? I said, so I'm wanting to investigate. How does she know she has a liver that needs shrunk? So I said, so how do you know you have a liver that needs shrunk? She said, well, I was in an automobile accident, and in the automobile accident, I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance.
It's a bit slow, but no, but you know something, the pity is not canvassing.
As part of my workup, they put me into a CT scanner. At the end of the scan, I asked the technician what he found, and he says, well, I'm just a technician. I'm not the doctor, but everything looks good except your liver. It's enlarged and has a ruffled border. She says, well, what does an enlarged liver with a ruffled border indicate? He says, well, I'm not the doctor, but I'll just say from my experience here running this machine, that I see people who are on vitamins for their eyes having swollen livers and ruffled borders. She says, well, I take a vitamin for my eyes called Ocuvite. Is that perhaps why I have a swollen liver? He says, well, that's what I see. She says, what should I do? He says, well, I can't tell you what you should do. You got to ask your doctor, but I certainly don't take those vitamins. And so it was an interesting encounter. And yeah, I put her on a program to shrink her liver. But it was sort of my first encounter with people with enlarged livers. Up until then, it hadn't really hit my radar. And then I started studying fatty liver disease. Somebody asked me, somebody said, well, will you do a presentation on fatty liver disease? I hadn't really connected the dots, the fatty liver and the patient with the vitamins and now
Yeah,
fatty
so it's a
So
balm.
it's a bar, and it's
fatty liver disease growing across the country. And so as I embarked on this study of this disease, I was shocked to see how many people actually have this disease and how common it was. Um, and it's like 30% of the world population. I mean, this is like other diseases, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and it's the most common cause of chronic liver disease in the developed world. Notice the emphasis on the developed world. And last time we talked about all the processing of everything under the sun into oil and people using that oil and getting
gonna
disease.
sleep.
Well, this is one of the diseases here. And so we want to be aware that people are getting this. It's slated to be the most common indication for a liver transplant. I mean, in the past it was hepatitis or other things like that. Now it's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which we abbreviate NAFLD. And people can get sick with it. Not initially, but eventually. And one of the causes of death is that their heart doesn't do well with this. And so, interesting connection between the liver and the heart. What happens is the liver gets fatty, and then it gets fibrosis. And when it gets fibrosis, then you end up with non-alcoholic steatosis or hepatitis. So my specialty today is lifestyle medicine. Our goal is to maximize your health above the probability of disease. And I've been doing this largely since 2006, so about 20 years. Now, the increase in this has been dramatic over the last 10, 15, 20 years. We look from 1990 actually till today, we're looking at a 50% increase. That's quite a lot. And we really need to be aware of the trends and what's causing them. So last time, yeah, we talked about all the oils people are using. Once you eat an oil, the place it goes largely is to your liver. Yeah, your liver is the processing plant for your fats. Your intestines, your small intestine, large intestine, especially small intestine, is where the fats get digested, emulsified, absorbed. But they go directly to the liver through a set of blood vessels called your portal blood system. And at the liver, they start causing troubles. The initial finding is the accumulation of fat. We call it steatosis. Steatosis is just meaning too much fat, and in this case, your liver. And so it collects. When it gets into about 5% of the hepatocytes, then that starts showing up on histological slides and exams. And then you go from steatosis to non-alcoholic steatosis with hepatitis, where you have inflammation and ballooning of the cells. The cells get full of fat. And then you add to that, the next step is fibrosis. Now, this is still reversible. But as the fibrosis turns to scar tissue, it becomes non-reversible. This is when we consider it cirrhosis. And the final common pathway for cirrhosis is that the liver's efforts to break free of the inflammation, ballooning, fibrosis, and scar tissue is that it becomes overhealing and you get tumor formation, so hepatocellular carcinoma. And that's not a good finding. So they start, when cirrhosis reaches the scar stage and the irreversible, and the liver function starts decreasing, then we start having to think about replacing the liver with another one. But how often do they replace the liver and never tell the patient to quit using oil, quit using fats, quit all the stuff we talked about last week? How will I know if I have a liver that's gone into this fatty liver disease? Well, often there's no symptoms. Other than this, like this lady going in for a scan and discovering it just serendipitously, it may not be found. I mean, it could be that you'll get fatigue, although everybody has a little fatigue, it seems. Feeling not too well, or what we call malaise. That can do it. Pain or discomfort in the upper right belly area. Upper right, we call it quadrant. That would be right in that area. This will be a sign. In later stages, as the liver is not taking care of the toxins in your body, you might get itchy skin, abdominal swelling as fluid collects around your intestines, shortness of breath as the fluid in the around the intestines starts pressing on the lungs, swelling of the legs as the fluid in the intestines around the intestines makes it so that you can't get blood back from your legs, spider-like blood vessels just beneath the skin's surface, enlarged spleen, that would be in the opposite side of your liver, palms, your hands turning red, and yellow of the skin. This is a late finding. Yellowing of the eyes, which we call jaundice. Well, okay, how do we get this thing? Well, you are what you eat. And what did we call it? Fatty liver disease. So connection is there with fat. So eating fat, but you know, eating sugar will turn to fat too, as your body makes the sugar into triglycerides, so it can store them. And a lot of that storage happens in the liver. So let's just keep that in mind as we go along here. And what's the biggest source of fat in many people's diet? Well, meat. And high meat intake is associated with a very high risk of fatty liver disease. So is it any wonder that it's in the Western world where people eat more meat than common sense would tell you is good? And they suffer the many diseases. There's also the whole thing of spices and grease, which we talked about last time, which can include cooking oils. And these inflame the liver because your liver doesn't really want to have to deal with large quantities of fat and grease. And these fats get deposited, and those fats start degenerating. Those fats also get deposited around your organs in your abdomen, like around your kidneys and your intestines and your liver. And these abdominal fats, visceral, which means organ fats, are always at a higher temperature. And since they're at always a higher temperature, they degenerate. And as they degenerate, then you end up with rancid fats. Those create havoc all through your body, especially your liver. So plain simple diet composed of whole grains, vegetables, and fruits prepared without spices or grease is much healthier for the liver. Little plug there for God's diet. Yeah. All right. Full fat dairy. You get the word there, fat? Yeah, full fat. What's this like? Whole milk? Yeah. Cheese? Yeah. Cottage cheese? Yeah. All these different sour cream? Yeah. Frequent consumption of these full fat dairy products can increase your risk of fatty liver disease by as much as 2/3. And you thought it was great to have the milk mustache? Not. Now, saturated fat. Here I have pictured coconut fat because here, this study showed that both long and short chain fatty acids from the saturated fat department increase non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So you thought you were using that coconut oil for your brain, which is not smart. It doesn't help your brain. But it also deteriorates your liver, just like lard. And we showed you how much saturated fat was in coconut oil in the last presentation. But the other thing that comes from saturated fats is the artificial saturated fats, or the heated fats, or the hydrogenated fats, and that's trans fat. Trans fat definitely creates inflammation. How does it do it? Well, these crooked, twisted fats actually, when they incorporate into the cell wall, your cell walls are made of fats, they are, what would we say? They're not friendly neighbors. This is like sometimes you get somebody in your church you can't all get along with. Maybe they're like trans fats, eh? Anyway, these trans fats make it so that there's holes in your cell walls. Those holes then allow for leaking of ions and create problems that lead to inflammation as the cell degenerates. Is butter better? There's a lot of people out there switch from margarine to butter. Well, you know, the reason we got away from margarine, something else, anything else, was because it wasn't any good. And so we did switch to something that wasn't any better, margarine. But that doesn't mean a return to butter is better. No, we need to leave that abandoned. And butter consumption is associated with higher mortality from cancer, respiratory disease, kidney disease, and chronic liver disease. Dispense with the butter, right? Yeah. Fried food accelerates this liver fibrosis. I mean, you can almost think of fried food as being fibrosed, huh? Well, not really, but in a sense. And so fried foods 4 or more times per week increases the risk of this NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, by 120%. That means it more than doubles it. Fried food is not your friend. Frying is not a reasonable food preparation process. Eating those fried foods. How do we eat fried foods? Well, people stir fry in oil. People fry, as we see pictured here, eggs and meat. People fry breaded vegetables. People fry. Basically, putting anything into hot oil is going to lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And what do people often put with their oily products? Some condiment with vinegar. Well, vinegar is metabolized in your liver. And the liver doesn't like to have to metabolize vinegar with this acetic acid. And this increases liver cancer and also increases gallbladder cancer, and this vinegar increases NAFLD. So vinegar from anything, pickles. Oh, well, you mean the pickle isn't good for me? Yeah, when it's cured in vinegar, the fermentation, the curing significantly increases the risk. Significantly, yeah. Significantly increases the risk of your liver not being happy. You want your liver to look like that pickle? Well, there you go. Eat those pickles. Now, you can overwhelm your liver by eating too much. And most people, why do I say most people? Most people eat too much. How do you know that? Well, what percent of the population is overweight or obese? It's over 2/3. You know, we say in voting we want to get more than a half. When you have 2/3, you got a way majority. So majority of people are overeating. Overeating clogs the liver. Indulgence of appetite, hello, as compared to temperance and self-denial, produces a dyspeptic stomach, a sluggish liver, there's your fatty liver disease, and a clouded brain. So, how many here want a clouded brain? No, we don't want a clouded brain. How many want a sluggish liver? No, we don't want a sluggish liver. How many want a dyspeptic stomach? No, I don't want a dyspeptic stomach. So, does that mean I need to eat less food? That's not a popular message. Let's not have any unpopular messages here, right? Well, remember Daniel? Daniel was a man of temperance and self-denial. How did he learn that? His parents benefited from Josiah's discovery of the book of the law in the temple. And they started a reformation in Israel about the time of Daniel's birth. And Daniel benefited from that reformation. You mean I can learn interesting things from Leviticus? Yeah, Leviticus and Proverbs. Eat for strength and not for drunkenness. Well, how do you decide how much food to eat? Oh, if it tastes good, get as much of it as you can, right? How do you decide what to eat? Well, you go by flavor, right? How does the restaurant decide what to feed you? Oh, what's everybody's favorite, right? What's flavorful? Is that what keeps restaurants in business? Yes. Is that what keeps doctors in business? Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, obesity, the result of eating too much, leads to inflammation, and it triggers this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Yeah, fatty liver. Let's just call it fatty liver. Chronic obesity. That's when you put it on and you don't take it off. And it stays on for a long time. What's a long time? Well, it's, yeah, any time is too much. Chronic obesity triggers a prolonged inflammatory response, which leads to tissue fibrosis and sustained organ damage, which contributes not just to liver failure, but multi-organ dysfunction. Well, but if I want to lose weight, should I go low carb? Is there a benefit to low carb? Not for your liver. Because what they do in that low carb is they quit eating good foods. Well, what's an example of low carb? Strawberry. In this picture, the tomatoes and the grapes. Oh, you mean they're wanting me to switch from tomatoes and grapes, which are complex carbohydrates with dietary fiber, to meat, which has no fiber, at least no useful fiber? Yeah. And so the low carb diet focuses on fats, high fat, total fat. It focuses on protein, usually of animal origin. And they end up eating snacks and soft drinks and silly stuff like that. Anyway, low carb is not a benefit. See, not all carbs are created equal. What you want is complex carbohydrate. The lady here is trying to decide between a stack of donuts, which are poison to your liver. Poison. Did you hear that? How many are stacked up there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 half a dozen donuts. That's half a dozen slices or circles of liver poison. I put out rat poison the other day. It was oats and wheat and seeds all turned green with poison. And I put them out for the rat. They came and ate it because it was oats and wheat and seeds. But you think it did them any good? No. I started smelling a dead rat after a couple days. That's not really what you want. But anyway, dead rat. Well, what will these donuts do? They'll kill your liver. And you think the rats liked the oats and the wheat? Yeah. Yeah, they like oats and wheat. You think people like donuts? Oh, yes. But do they realize that it's loaded with oils? See, I had a roommate in college whose parents owned a Dunkin' Donut. I mean, it's any donut factory will be like this. But anyway, they own a Dunkin' Donut outlet, franchise, fast food joint. And he said every day he hauled in not one, but two 50-pound blocks of grease to put in a deep fat fryer. That's 100 pounds of grease every day to make those donuts. And when you mix the sugar with the oil, it causes an even faster decline in your liver. Yeah, bad news. Now, there's another sugar that's even worse, and that is the sugar that comes from usually corn. It's called fructose. It doesn't just come from corn. It can come from agave. It can come from different fancily processed things like coconut sugar. I mean, these things, when they do high processing of sugar, they end up usually with fructose. And fructose is especially poisonous. Now, I'm not talking about the little bit of fructose in an apple, or a little bit of fructose that's well distributed with all the other glyconutrients in a banana. I'm talking about factory isolated, concentrated, highly refined fructose. You know, fructose doesn't appear in isolation in nature. It's balanced with everything else you need. So when you eat an apple, you're not going to have fatty liver disease. But when you drink a carbonated beverage that's loaded with fructose, you drink 4 of those per week, and your risk of fatty liver goes up by 47%. Yeah, 64 per week, not per day. Many people drink that many per day. People, I mean, that's just a can. A can is 12 ounces. How many ounces in a liter of this stuff? Well, 64. I mean, so this is like 5 cans in a, oh, yeah. Well, anyway, something like that. Well, maybe 64 would be 2 liters. But yeah, so this is a lot of soda. So people drinking soda end up with this fatty liver. And so people will use artificial sweeteners in their drinks to go low carb. But this, for some reason, also increases fatty liver. And so if you drink less than a liver per week, but you're drinking it, so maybe you drink 2 cans, this is the low carb stuff. This is the 0 calorie stuff. Yeah. 43% for less than 1 liter. 1 to 2 liters, 73%. Over 2 liters, that's more than one of those big bottles, then you got 137% higher risk of fatty liver. You see, that artificial sweetener is also like rat poison. In fact, it'd probably kill the rats. And really, this artificial sweetener is just like monosodium glutamate. So monosodium glutamate is a boatload of the free amino acid glutamic acid. The artificial sweeteners are a boatload of aspartate and phenylalanine, and those are not good in isolation. So monosodium glutamate, where do I find monosodium glutamate? Anytime I overprocess proteins. What's an example of an overprocessed protein? How about protein isolate from soy? Soy protein isolate, pea protein. Yeah. These proteins in isolation of Bragg's liquid aminos, when they take the soy and they break it down into the individual amino acids, then you end up with a lot of free glutamate. How much? Well, for soy protein, it's 20% glutamate. So you break it down into Bragg's liquid aminos, and you have 20% monosodium glutamate. Oh, they say on the they don't say anywhere on the package that they added MSG. They don't need to add it. You just break down soy protein into its individual amino acids, and you're 20% MSG. So super flavors, and you mix that with high fructose corn syrup, and the two together definitely cause fatty liver. The high fructose corn syrup and the monosodium glutamate both inflame the liver. The other thing that we talked about last time is the seed oils. The seed oil, soybean oil, sunflower seed oil, cottonseed oil, safflower, all these things they make oil out of. Those seed oils create more inflammation in the liver than even high fructose corn syrup. And if those oils are genetically modified, it's even worse. It causes congestion, necrosis, and bile duct hyperplasia in the liver. I mean, all things that are, associated with fatty liver disease. It does all the things. So it's worse to have genetically modified soybean oil. Where are you going to find soybean oil that isn't genetically modified? Hello. All those soybeans out there in the Midwest are genetically modified. You have to have a special place to grow non-genetically modified organic soybeans in order to have any. Otherwise, they will get pollinated from all the genetically modified soybeans out there. I mean, so I'd be surprised. Well, I don't know. I don't go shopping for oil, so I can't tell you if there's organic soybean oil out there, but that would be surprising. Anyway. All right, snack your way. Snack your way to fatty liver. That's it. Eating between meals clogs the liver. See, your body was made to have a rest. Your body was made to have a clean out time. It's like, so we have a washing machine. It's a front loader. And every couple months, the light comes on, it says clean your machine. Whether it needs it or not, it's sort of on a timer. And we run it through a clean cycle. Well, 2 months is too long for your liver. You need to clean out of your liver, of your system, within every 5 hours. That's why we're supposed to have 5 hours between our meals. If you don't have 5 hours between your meals, you're not going to clean out your liver. It's going to accumulate sludge. And that snacking between meals is going to sludge your liver, otherwise known as fatty liver disease. And this can happen even when you're an adolescent. So let's be aware of that. Now, processed food for processed people. Refined food for refined people. Fatty food for, okay, let's get back on topic here. Okay, consuming processed foods increase the risk of fatty liver by 26%. As she reaches for what? Lucky Charms, Milo. So anytime, these breakfast cereals are not good for you. Notice on my list here, I have frozen meals. That's, yeah, TV dinners. Soft drinks, hot dogs, fast food, deli meats, packaged cookies, cakes, salty. When you leave the fresh fruit and vegetable section of the supermarket and venture out into the rest of the supermarket, you are on shaky ground. Salty snacks, jarred sauces, and yes, boxed cereals. Just an aside, I just have to throw this in here. When I was studying hypertension, high blood pressure, I came across a study on the effect of boxed cereals on your blood pressure. I knew to look for that because a lot of those boxed cereals have more sodium than their chip counterparts. In other words, corn flakes might have more sodium than corn chips. Anyway, so I looked it up. Well, the researchers, found out eating boxed cereals caused high blood pressure. But it was funny to read the researchers' comments as they grew eloquent on the discussion of their whole research project. They said this was a difficult research project, very difficult, because it was hard to keep enough rats alive in the research group when they ate boxed cereals. In other words, this stuff was killing rats. And so it'll kill your liver as well. You thought boxed cereal was your wonderful fast food for breakfast. No, not so. Speaking of salt, when people are on a high salt diet, it definitely contributes to liver inflammation and fatty liver. How much salt is too much salt? Well, more than a teaspoon per day is definitely too much. Physiologically, you only need about 1/8 of a teaspoon per day, needs-wise. I'm saying needs. I mean, most people wouldn't tolerate only 1/8 of a teaspoon a day. Taste-wise, well, your taste is a learned experience. You've grown to like what your parents fed you, or what you grew up eating, or whatever, right? You inherited your parents' diet, and that's why you catch your parents' diseases. Oh, diabetes runs in my family. Really? So does high-fat, salty snacks. Yeah, you're right. So now let's talk about which meals help your liver and which don't. Oh, now we're getting into timing of when you eat. That evening meal, the third meal of the day, if taken at all, should be strictly confined to simple food, or we should reap the consequences in. I'm just reading the Spirit of Prophecy here, right? Disordered digestive organs, clogged liver, and disturbed bowels. Anybody want disturbed bowels? Anybody want disordered digestive organs? Clogged liver? Eat supper. You can do it. Eat supper. That's it. Third meal. And, but I like to eat that third meal. That's when I socialize. Yeah, you think about all the trappings that Satan has used to get people to do what he wants them to do. That's like the rat poisoning. It's got oats and corn in there, or oats and sweet in there that the rats like, but it's also got the downside. And I bet that stuff didn't help the rat's liver either. So the third meal of the day. Maybe I should find some other way to socialize that doesn't involve indulgence of appetites and passions. Oh boy, now you're preaching. What are we going to do with this carnal mind? Oh, you need a new nature. If you don't have a new nature, this dinner eating thing, eating an evening meal increases the risk of fatty liver by as much as 25%. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, absolutely crazy. Now, there's other things that'll do it. Let's get away from fats. I mean, I've harped on fats now for 2 weeks, right? Stimulants, coffee, tea, they don't help the liver. Causes headaches, nervous prostration, unbalanced nerves, and it affects the liver. The liver is morbid in its action. Yeah, you're going to end up with problems. What does it do to the liver? It changes its circulation. It affects the blood. And it makes it so you end up with brain problems as well. It injures the brain. You mean if I drink coffee, I injure my brain? Yeah, but we're talking about the liver. Let's get back to the liver. Okay, the liver. Now, I talked earlier about high-fat dairy, but now I want to talk more about cheese because, mold exposure. And you're in a house with mold. When you're in a home with mold, oh boy, I just got through working, rebuilding the roof on my home to get rid of the mold out of the roof because the mold in the roof was causing me illness, made me catch a flu or something. And so I found mold, like pictured here, just like on this cheese, was in the plywood on my roof, in the rafters. So I had to remove rafters. I had to remove plywood. I took the whole roof off. I replaced the whole roof, replaced plywood, replaced insulation, put in more insulation, put tin roof on this time instead of shingles. Well, those dusty corners in our dwelling are a source of mold and mold exposure. Bathing areas where it's always wet, around that caulking around your bathtub. Food is an abundant source of mycotoxins as well. Here we have cheese. So you get this mold and you're going to end up with fatty liver. Yeah. Now, most drugs are metabolized in the liver. The liver, the heart, and the brain are frequently affected by drugs, and often all these organs are burdened with disease. And the unfortunate subjects, unfortunate by their own choice, by their own doing, if they live, more people die of using drugs than are cured by using drugs. Well, nobody's cured by using drugs. That's right. So, if they live, are invalids for life, rarely dragging out a miserable existence. There are more who die from the use of drugs than all who could have died from disease had nature been left to do her work. Boy, that's heavy duty. Amiodarone, that's a heart medicine. Aspirin, that's given to everybody. That hurts your liver? Yes. I'm listing ones that are in the studies. I'm not making this up. Ibuprofen, that's an anti-inflammatory drug. AZT, used for people with other diseases. Protease inhibitors. Yeah. Valproic acid. Carbamazepine. I mean, these are just some. I mean, I'm just listing these. Tamoxifen, but I took that for breast cancer. Yeah. Perhexaline, malic. 5-fluorouracil. Methotrexate. Irinotecan. Glucocorticoids. This is steroids. Anyway, this is not an exhaustive list. I just had to throw a few in there. Fatty liver, not good. All overclothing the skin and insignificant fresh air overwork the liver. Why is that? If you overclothe the skin, your sweat is reabsorbed. It has to go to the liver to get removed. The burden of labor is then thrown upon the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, wherever. And you end up with problems in these organs. And these internal organs are compelled to do the work of the skin. So beware of that. Your skin needs to be cleansed. Maybe you need to do another bath in a week. Maybe you need to scrub your skin. Maybe you need to not overclothe your skin. So, and notice the boy has something on his head, yep. Something on his arms, yep. Something on his body, yep. But his legs just have regular pants. We often do that. We overheat a certain part of our body. That's a problem too, but that's another subject. All right. You need fresh air, getting outdoors. The prevalence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is higher in urban districts, that's in town, compared to rural districts. Some of you are talking about moving out of town. You will get NFLD just by living in town. A study in New York City of high school students, they put sensors on their bodies for the levels of toxins in town. The whole time they're in town, their toxins were above acceptable levels. When they went into their houses, the toxins went up to 2 and 3 times acceptable levels. Living indoors all the time, living in houses all the time, living in houses that are in rural districts where the urban districts make it so that you end up with more toxins. The liver is the filter for toxins. Guess what happens? You end up with all those polluted things in your liver. You end up with fatty liver disease just by what you breathed. Yeah. Where were we made to live? God planted man in a garden in the Eden, right? And he was to dress and keep it. Who built the first city? Well, Cain. Whose city was especially prominent? Yeah, Nimrod's, Babel. God said, no, get out of the city. Changed all their languages so you couldn't get along. And we came up with Google Translate. Well, anyway. Indoor life produces liver invalids. It's the case. You need the fresh air. You don't get the fresh air, you're going to be in trouble. Yeah. It's just like that. Now let's talk about clothing again. Our limbs and our feet are suitably protected from cold and damp to secure the circulation of the blood to them with all its blessings. Morning exercise and walking in the free, invigorating air of heaven, or cultivating flowers, small fruits, and vegetables, is necessary to the healthful circulation of the blood. Oh, you mean if I just live in a house and sit around all day, I don't get good circulation of blood? That's right. It is the surest safeguard against colds, coughs, congestion of the brain and lungs, inflammation of the liver, the kidneys, and the lungs, and 100 other diseases. So we want morning exercise. Another place she says, I'll do for you more than all the medicine the doctor can give you. Okay. Now, tight clothing isn't good. Tight clothing hampers the circulation. Tight clothing puts a burden on the liver. Tight clothing makes it so you're more likely to have a problem with the liver. Tight bands around the waist, tight bands around the chest. When you put a tight band around the chest, you don't breathe as deep with every breath. Thus, an insufficient supply of oxygen is received. Blood moves sluggishly. The waste poisonous matter, which should be thrown off in the exhalations from the lungs, is retained, and the blood becomes impure. Not only the lungs, but the stomach, liver, and brain are affected. When you wear a tight band around the chest, you breathe less air with every breath. Another thing that harms the liver is something called self-abuse, hypersexuality, all kinds of problems with lust and the animal appetites. All right, mental state affects that sadness. Sadness deadens the circulation in the blood vessels and nerves and also retards the action of the liver. Sadness of spirits, heaviness of heart, which are wearing me down and bring debility upon me, affect the digestive organs and cause inaction of the liver. Despondency and discontent. Inactivity yielding to despondency and discontent will produce an inactive liver. Lamentations, mine eyes do fail with tears. My bowels are troubled, my liver is poured upon the earth for the destruction of the daughter of my people, because the children and sucklings swoon in the streets of the city. So he's discouraged, he's depressed, and his liver is affected. Mental state affects the liver. You have dwelt upon the thought that you were not well, but feeble and exhausted and nervously shattered until this has become a fixed thing with you in your brain, right? Your ailments and poor feelings are more in consequence of your own thoughts and of your diet and lack of physical exercise than of settled disease. Your system becomes clogged, your liver inactive, and the impurities are not thrown off from the system till nature, which is still strong, makes her voice heard in remonstrance by pains and aches, that she may rid the system of accumulated impurities that are warring against health and life. Stress will increase your fatty liver disease. Wow. Boy. Well, let's move on. Insomnia. People with trouble sleeping have more of this. People who are like all of us this morning on our devices. Computer, mobile device usage, just 3 hours per day increases the risk of fatty liver by 58%. Probably has to do with more than the fact you're using that device, but there are electromagnetic fields, but people snack while they're on there, but they also are inactive. So how about tobacco? Well, number of cigarettes smoked per day. The more you smoke of them, the more you get non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. How about herbicides? Glyphosate. Man, there's glyphosate in everybody. I said everybody. Because it's been sprayed on everything. It's hard to find anything that doesn't have some glyphosate in it as far as food goes. Then there's 2,4-D. That's part of Agent Orange. Both of those cause NFALD. Toxic chemicals. Yeah, that new car. Vinyl chloride. Yeah, flame retardants. Yeah. And then there's pesticides. The others were herbicides that I talked about. Pesticides. And so organochloride pesticides, these are a problem. Polychlorinated biphenyls. Yeah. And so it's good to eat organic food or food you grow yourself. We're growing food. We live out in the country. We have a greenhouse. We have one orchard. We have gardens. We have some trees. So there's a lot of good food to be eaten out there, but you want to find it in good places. Total vegetarian diet combats NFLD. Now these graphs are two parts of the liver, the hilus, where all the blood vessels come in, and zone 6 of the liver. Anyway, part of the liver. So you look at the liver, and notice that an omnivore diet, what's an omnivore diet? That means you eat meat along with other things. So the omnivore diet increases NFALD, fatty liver. But notice that the vegetarian diet makes it go down a little bit. What's a vegetarian diet? That means you eat your fruits and vegetables. You also use eggs and dairy. The third line, the dashed line, is vegan. Now that's become a controversial word, but it means total plant-based diet. So total plant-based diet, that means you don't eat any animal products. then it lowers the fatty liver signs on histology most. So there you go. How do I fix this thing? Start eating more fresh fruits and vegetables. What if it's already progressed to fibrosis? What should I eat? Eat more pineapple? Yep, that's very good. Pineapple's fibrinolytic. That's what I'd be eating a lot of if I had fibrosed fatty liver. I'm going to eat it anyway. Good stuff. Very good stuff. Very high in vitamin C, bromelain, other good things. So eating fruits and vegetables decreases fatty liver disease. Vegetables decrease it by 22%, fruits by 12%. What vegetables are especially good for the liver? You see one in the right upper corner. Broccoli, cruciferous vegetables. So cabbage, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, kohlrabi, Brussels sprouts, on and on and on. Those things from the cruciferous family, brassicas, those are good for cleansing the liver. Yeah, yeah. All right, vitamin C. Pictured here is what? Kiwi. Yeah, kiwi. Higher blood levels of vitamin C are associated with lower liver disease. And you get those higher levels by eating it from fruits and vegetables. Red cabbage has more vitamin C than citrus. You know that? Anyway, fruits and vegetables give you a higher level in your bloodstream than pills or artificially created vitamin C. You don't want vitamin C from pills. You weren't made to run on pills. Sorry. Falling apart here. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so you are what you eat. Go low fat or less non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Switch from a Western diet to low fat or maybe Mediterranean diet. That's what the studies talk about. Mediterranean diet is sort of not well defined. People think if they add olive oil to everything, then it's going to be a Mediterranean diet. So low fat's what we're talking about here. They reduce the fat in the liver by as much as 32% and improve the symptoms and the enzymes in the liver. Oatmeal, with its high fiber and beta glycan, definitely helps by a number of ways. Number one, it lowers cholesterol. Wait. Are we talking a preview to next week's talk? Yeah. Next week's talk, we're going to talk about cholesterol. And here we are already talking about it. And oatmeal. Why oatmeal? High fiber. What kind of fiber? Beta glycan. What does it do? Well, it takes some cholesterol out of your body, but it also feeds healthy bacteria. Those healthy bacteria lower inflammation and mediators of fatty liver. So there, you got a superfood. Now, don't get stuck on one food every day. There's other things that are good too. Nuts. What kind of nuts? As pictured here. Well, those still have the shell on them. Well, you can get them shelled. You can buy nuts that have already been shelled, but don't get the deep fat fried salted ones. Dry roasted would be the next step after this. This would be number one. Number two would be the ones that are already shelled. Number three would be dry roasted. The deep fat fried ones would cause non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So eating nuts 4 times per week is a good source of fats and can decrease fatty liver. Consuming nuts as much as 6 times per week can decrease the risk of progression toward fibrosis. You see, nuts not only have their own fats well packaged with fiber and other nutrients, but they might have a few enzymes that'll help you in processing those fats. Now, another thing that's good is to eat less food. Remember we talked about overeating causes fatty liver? Well, let's undereat a little bit. Is there such a thing as undereating? We're told we eat more than twice as much food as we need to. That's what we're told by God, right? So weight reduction, 3 to 5% is associated with improved fatty liver. So get on the scale, What would 3% be of 300 pounds? No, you don't. I'm not going to look it up. Yeah, okay. Anyway, 3% of whatever you weigh, 5% of whatever you weigh. And reductions of 5 to 7% are necessary to decrease liver inflammation. If you lose as much as 10% of your weight, if you need to lose weight, may be associated with reversal or regression of fibrosis. So no specific dietary intervention has proven more beneficial than caloric restriction. And why is that? Because it's hard to eat processed food and restrict calories. So what the lady has here pictured is going to restrict calories. Eating meat or processed food is going to be hard to restrict calories. Just like clockwork. Another thing that's helpful is eating your meals on time. Irregularity in meal times. This is huge. Irregularity in meal times and sleep times causes circadian clock disruption, metabolic disorders, and results in fatty liver. Okay, put that in plain English. Baby, if you aren't there on time for a meal, you're going to end up with a sick liver. Yeah, that's it. And so you want to be on time. What's on time? Well, better 5 minutes early than 5 minutes late. In other words, pick a meal time and treat it like an airport schedule. What's an airport schedule? That's when the airplanes take off. Well, does that change? Well, they can delay it, but you can't, right? You better not come late to that. They're supposed to be on time. But you better not come late, because if you come late, that plane may have already taken off. They may have closed the gate, and you won't get on that airplane. And well, that's the same way with your meal. If you miss that meal, then you need to skip it. Figure the next plane will be along at its meal time. If you miss breakfast well, okay, this week, or these weeks that I'm doing this program on Sundays, this is right in the middle of my breakfast time. What do? Eat breakfast early? Eat breakfast late? No, I skip breakfast. You can't change its time. Breakfast has a time. For us, it's 7 o'clock, okay? All right, 7 o'clock. And so it's better to skip. In fact, it's good to skip a meal once in a while anyway. We're told that, skipping meals for a whole day. My wife is actually fasting on Sundays. That's her fast day. And so she won't eat any meals today. And I'll decide if I want to join her at lunchtime in fasting. I mean, really, for me, skipping breakfast this morning means I haven't eaten since Sabbath noon because I don't eat supper. So that means I will have fasted a whole day. And that's part of the program, right? Part of being healthy is fasting once in a while. When you fast, you lower inflammation. When you fast, you lower NFALD. When you eat on time, you lower NFALD. Well, what if I'm really hungry and I got home late? And no, that's the worst time to eat. You got home late, drink a cold glass of water, and take a walk outdoors far from the refrigerator, because the refrigerator is going to be open its mouth and yelling, "You have food here." You want to see. Yeah, the beckoning for the refrigerator. Okay, beneficial herbs. Hawthorn berry tea. Hawthorn berry tea. What do we usually use hawthorn berry for? Well, really, we usually use it for high blood pressure, but it's also helpful for fatty liver. Turmeric, it's for anti-inflammatory, but that's very helpful for the liver. So turmeric, make turmeric tea, put turmeric in your stir fry, put turmeric in your tofu, put turmeric with your, and exercise, we've touched on it a bit, but by active exercise in the open air. Can I do it on my treadmill in the basement? Absolutely not. I mean, that's better than sitting in the armchair watching TV, but the best, put that treadmill outdoors. By active exercise in the open air every day, the liver, kidneys, and lungs will also be strengthened to perform their work. Notwithstanding all that is said, talk is cheap, right? And written concerning the importance, there are still many who neglect physical exercise. If you keep wiggling, They won't put you in a box. Some grow corpulent, that means fat, because the system is clogged. Others become thin and feeble because their vital powers are exhausted in disposing of an excess of food. I gotta tell you about that, but I'll just read this last sentence first. The liver is burdened in its effort to cleanse the blood of impurities and illness as a result. So when we had mold exposure in our house, well, and in the months leading up to that, I lost a little weight. Thought that's not good. Why am I losing weight? Well, let me see if I can't just gain weight. So I added a third meal. I started eating more nuts, avocados, bananas, cooked potatoes. I ate as much as I dared at a meal without overeating. I checked my weight on the scale after about 3 weeks of doing that and feeling miserable and thinking this is killing me. I had lost half a pound. Yeah, force feeding doesn't do it. And very interesting that she says here, some grow corpulent because the system is clogged, others become thin and feeble because their vital powers are exhausted in disposing of excessive food. So I went back to eating the right amount and I gained my weight back. Wow. Famously. Okay. Exercise your way to liver health. Each 1,000 steps you take, which is about half a mile, ends up reducing the risk of fatty liver by 12%. So how many steps should you take in a day? Well, according to the literature, 5 to 10,000 steps, which would be up to like 5 miles. That would be good. That'd be very good. Another good thing to lower fatty liver, sunlight. Oh boy, there's whole good lectures on sunlight out there. Yeah, my wife does a talk on sunlight. Anyway, sunlight increases vitamin D, of course, but it also lowers inflammation, not just by vitamin D, and decreases fatty liver. That's right. So when we're managing fatty liver or steatotic hepatitis, NASH, physical activity is very important. Liver-related benefits. You improve your insulin sensitivity. That's important. You make it so that there's less visceral fat. That's fat around your liver. You make it so that you have lower cholesterol because your liver clears this stuff. Vigorous activity, 75 minutes per week, you reduce the progression to hepatitis. When you do 150 minutes per week, then you reduce the risk of going on to fibrosis. When you do aerobic exercise, both, that gets you breathing, both reduce hepatic fat content independent of weight loss. And so either one's good. Yeah. Another thing that's very good is a bath. Taking a bath. Good for the liver. The bath is a soother of the nerves. It promotes the general perspiration, quickens the circulation, overcomes obstructions in the system, and acts beneficially on the kidneys, urinary organs. Bathing helps the bowels, stomach, and liver, giving energy and new life to each. Charcoal can be helpful. Poultices, orally, either one. It absorbs toxins. It absorbs inflammation from the liver. It can be used topically. It can be used orally. Yeah. In summary, as the refined, processed Western diet spreads worldwide, so do the associated lifestyle diseases. Man made it, don't eat it, right? That was Jack LaLanne's line. Yeah. Fatty liver disease is helped by focusing on a healthy diet and lifestyle. Eat for strength and not for drunkenness. Make your diet therapeutic. I mean, it's good to taste good, but you want to follow the 8 natural doctors, Ministry of Healing 127, pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, that's temperance, rest, exercise, proper diet, use of water, and trust in divine power. Can you trust him if you're disobeying him? No. And what does he say the best diet is? Fruits and vegetables prepared, free of grease, and it's as natural a condition as possible. These are the true remedies. So focus on fresh fruits and vegetables. Watch that fatty liver melt away. Now, if you go to my website, you can find more resources. You can find where I've given this talk before on YouTube. You can, we don't have a handout yet for this one. It's on my computer in the editing stages, but they'll get there eventually. And very good. All right, so I'm going to stop screen share right here. I'm going to stop PowerPoint right here. And I'm going to come back to the Zoom. And here we are.
Thank you so much. There's a lot to learn from your presentation, Dr. Clark. And at this time, we will now open for persons to ask the questions. It is officially now Q&A, and yeah, somebody knows what to do. You raise your virtual hand, we will take you in order. And I must say, kindly limit your questions only to today's presentation. Okay, we want to be focused, and please respect the guidelines of the Zoom. So we have Sister Anne. Go ahead. Your hand is raised first. Open your mic and you can speak.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Clark. I would like to ask about the coffee. It's really bad for the brain, you're saying? And then quickly, one more question is about the peanut butter. Can we still have peanut butter? And can we eat also peanut? Is it one of the good nuts? Thank you.
Good questions. Thank you. Yes, coffee is definitely going to be part of the problem. And coffee is not only a source of caffeine, but coffee is a fermented product. Having been fermented, it raises inflammation in your body, and your liver is going to be one of the places that that's going to happen. It's got a lot of things in coffee. If you go to my website and look under handouts or even videos, I have a whole handout on coffee and the dangers of it. So that's a serious thing. By the same token, peanuts are a challenge. Ellen White says that we can use peanuts sparingly, but almonds are better. What we deduce from that, from our understanding of science, is peanuts, number one, they're hard to get to market without getting moldy. Now, if you select a peanut product, you want to make sure you get a high quality one. And personally, having grown up on a farm and we grew peanuts, I know the smell of peanut mold, Aspergillus mold actually. And if I go smelling peanut butter, I can sort of detect if there's a large quantity of it in there. And not that we eat peanut butter much. We eat mostly almond butter and sunflower seed butter. But peanut butter, number one, it's hard to get it to market without mold. The second thing is that the ratio of polyunsaturated to saturated fats in peanuts has the effect on the body to raise cholesterol. Same is true of cashews, but peanuts are especially that way. And so one time we took my son to a optician to get his eyes checked for glasses. They did a retinal scan on him for the health of his retina, and they found little cloudy spots, deposits, as they said. We says, what's that from? They says, well, it can be from eating peanut butter. We says, really? He's been eating lots of peanut butter. So we switched him over to eating almond butter. So it's very interesting. We didn't have a chance to go back anytime after that for another scan, but we figured that was a good thing. So peanut butter raises cholesterol and has inflammation, and that's not helpful. So you're better off. Is it a nut? It's not a nut. It's a bean, and it's a high-fat bean. It's a bean like, well, like soybeans, like black beans, like pinto beans, but it's a high-fat bean, and so it's not a great source of food. But if you know the source of them and you know they're not moldy, then we're told we can eat them sparingly. And sometimes it's nice to have a different flavor than almond butter or sun butter. So we eat largely almond butter and sun butter, but once in a while we'll get a jar of peanut butter, the best quality we can find, organic. Yeah, organic. Why organic? Because a lot of times these root vegetables, or root beans in this case, they kill off the tops with glyphosate in order to make harvesting easier. So, in fact, beans above ground, they do that too as well. So you got to be careful. So organic is important. So there we go. All right. Hopefully that answers your question, Ann.
Thank you very much. Yes,
Yep.
you did answer. Thank you.
Someone was asking Dr. Clark. I don't know. It's actually saying, can cashew help also? This from YouTube. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat cashews with the idea in mind that's going to help fatty liver. We use a few cashews, but we try to use more almonds. Because, yeah, cashews, in experience at lifestyle centers, when the cooks start putting more cashews in, the cholesterol of the patients go up. And so you want to be aware of that. And if your cholesterol is going up, that's affecting your liver. So if I had fatty liver or was trying to lose weight, I wouldn't be doing cashews. I know they're very convenient for vegetarian restaurant recipes, but somehow we've come up with all these recipes that max out cashews, but much better off using other things and trying to lose weight than making your condiments that would normally use cashews out of tofu. It's much better. And on our website, you'll see a recipe for tofu. What condiment was it? I think it's tofu mayonnaise or tofu dressing. Anyway, look on our website for recipes.
Thank you so much. Maria, go ahead. You can open your mic.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My question is regarding nutritional yeast. Is it true that it also is like Bragg's amino that they make it out of fungus, and that that it automatically grows MSG, so they don't have to add any, nor do they need to label that it's in there, because it's part of their byproduct or their product as they're being as it's being grown or made, processed. So can you explain that to me and let me know if nutritional yeast is not good, or is it okay to use?
No, nutritional yeast would definitely be in the MSG category. High levels of MSG, and because people became aware of the dangers of MSG, they caught on. The companies making the food realize that you're not going to buy a package that says, we added MSG. So they needed to hide the fact that they loaded it up with free glutamate. So they started putting other ingredients in that are loaded with MSG, but don't have to say MSG in the label. The favorite one for them to use is nutritional yeast and yeast nutrients and yeast extract and yeast, because they can put that on the label and load up the product with MSG, and people are sort of not clued in. But yeah, and so yes, it's from the fungus family. Yes, it has mycotoxins. Yes, it increases cancer. No, you don't want to be eating it. But what do I do for my B vitamins? It doesn't have B vitamins. If it has B vitamins, it was added the same way they added to cornflakes. It doesn't have B12 naturally. If it does, it got contaminated with bacteria. It's not normally naturally there. And best off getting your B12 or whatever from garden produce. So yes, the yeast will cause more fatty liver disease through the inflammation route.
Thank you for the information. Appreciate it.
Right. I have a whole write-up on yeast on my website under written materials, and it's in my, I might even have a talk on it there somewhere.
What's your website?
The easiest way to get there is rev14.com, which is revelation14.com. REV is R as in Roger,
Okay.
E as in Edgar, V as in Victor. Yeah, 14.com. Otherwise, it's northernlightshealtheducation.com, which is a big long.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Marie. Brother Ray, go ahead.
First of all, before I forget, I want to wish all the fathers happy Father's Day because I totally forgot about it this morning in our welcome. So, with that said, Dr. Clark, thank you so much for your presentation. I have, well, one is kind of a statement and another one is the question. First, in the slide that you had with the processed food, processed people, where the young lady is reaching up for the Milo cereal, if you notice at the very bottom of the cereal package in red, it says menos precio, which translates to lower price, and mucho sabor, which means very flavorful. So, that's one of the tricks that they have that they tend to push into our line of sight to say, okay, it's affordable because that, of course, you're going to try to go for what you could afford as opposed to and unfortunately we tend to, especially if you have a bigger family, you tend to want to look for quantity versus quality. Now that's one thing that I think is important to note. And then the second thing, which is more the question, you mentioned how having fatty liver, it also one of the symptoms seems to be a rash. Now, how does that from the liver, how does that develop into a rash? I'm just curious.
All right, very good. Thank you for that comment on the cheap food. It's certainly become a thing in our society that industry has made and the government has made junk food cheaper. Candy is cheaper than good food, for example. And if you looked at the actual economics, it's impossible that corn oil should be so cheap on the market and soybean oil. But what they've done is they've kind of come in the back door because they discovered that agriculture was failing in the 1970s and farmers were going on strike, and there was all kinds of foreclosures, especially in the early 80s, of family farms. And so the government started subsidizing farmers both with money for not planting crops, but also for producing more of these crops. So the food was subsidized. And that made it so there was cheap corn products on the market, cheap soybean products on the market, cheap wheat products on the market. People could spend less of their time on acquiring food and more time on play and other pursuits. Well, then they started making oil out of the corn and soybeans. They started making alcohol out of the corn and soybeans. And pretty soon the subsidized food ends up in your gas tank as gasohol. It ends up in cheap oil on the shelves. You think if it takes 12 ears of corn to make a tablespoon of oil, well, if I go to I went to Walmart the other day and they had a sale price on ears of corn of 3 for $1. Well, if a teaspoon of oil cost me $4, man, that would be expensive product. But that would be what we would be looking at if they weren't subsidizing this stuff. And so they've made it so our whole food chain is over glutted with oil and sugar. Sugar from the sugar beets and from the sugar cane and oil from everything on earth. And so it's definitely true. There's one study I have in one of my talks where they looked at the price of food, where junk food had gone down in price and good food had nearly doubled in price. So you're right, it's a problem. And so what about the rash? When your liver fails, then the nitrogen products in your body start to go up. And when nitrogen starts going up, then it causes, a lot of times when there's sickness in your body, it erupts on your skin as rashes. I haven't figured, I should do more. I'm not a skin doctor, but I have looked at it some. But to me, it's amazing. Somebody eats something they're allergic to and it went in their stomach, but their whole body turns out with red circles all over it. I'm like, what is going on? How's that happen? It went to stomach and the whole body. So when you end up with a failing liver and it's clogged and it's no longer taking care of the toxins that your body needs to get rid of, then it tends to cause skin eruptions, just like eating something you're allergic to. And so you end up with urticaria, you end up with hives, you end up with, other thing you'll end up with is spider, as we mentioned, spider angiomas. That's the little blood vessels under the skin. And it's kind of like they're trying to get close to the skin to get rid of those nitrogen products that they otherwise should have been gotten rid of by the liver. It's like your blood vessels are coming out the surface to exhale, decompress, detox, and so yeah, that's my understanding of it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next, we will have Marcy.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and I appreciate this presentation. I've learned a whole lot. I kind of got distracted when you were discussing margarine versus butter. Is margarine better? Is butter better? I'm not sure I didn't get the butter part first. I heard the margarine.
Right.
So, thank you.
Yeah, and last week's talk would be helpful too, where we went into the whole discussion of grease. Grease being a oil product that is solid at room temperature, but Kellogg included bottled oils with that, which is interesting because he would have been a good source of current thinking on grease for his day when Ellen White said, or when God told us through Ellen White, that we shouldn't be eating grease. And in Leviticus it says, "Ye shall eat no manner of fat of ox or of." So isn't butter just fat of ox? Yeah, it's a fat of an ox. Oh yeah, it came through the milk channel, but we found a way to concentrate it. And this would also fall under the category of high-fat dairy. I mean, there's nothing higher fat than butter, and margarine for that matter. It's or bottled oil. So yeah, last week's talk, you can look on the YouTube channel and watch it. We go into all the fats, and the butter's just another one of those fats. And no, butter and margarine, neither one is good. So last week I talked about that I went on this journey, and we never ate butter in our home because of what we know from God's information to us through the spirit of prophecy. But we used margarine like it was going out of style. I mean, to tell you, we love to make toast and melt our margarine on it, and then put on jam or something. I don't know. And well, those are not good products, and they stay in your body for 2 years, and they make it so that, interestingly enough, one day I was in my clinic, and this gentleman came into my clinic with a sore shoulder, and he was a hog farmer. And I reached out and felt his shoulder, and it felt like it was thick and waxy, and like it must have the fat around it must be about an inch thick, and hard and thick. And I said, "You eat a lot of your homegrown product?" He says, "Oh yeah, I eat a lot of pork." And I said, "Well, I think I can kind of feel it here in your shoulder." He says, "Really?" I says, "Yeah." Well, I went back to my room after talking with him and giving him some diet advice and some other advice on getting over his painful shoulder. And I dictated in my dictaphone for the transcriptionist to write it down that his shoulder felt like he was eating lots of pork or lard. Well, my transcriptionist came running in my room. She was in another building. She came over to my clinic, came in my room, says, did you say in that dictation that you could feel that he had been eating lots of fat, and especially lard and pork, and you could feel it? I said, "Well, yeah, he had a very stiff, thick fat on his shoulder." She says, "Here, feel my shoulder. What do I eat a lot of?" And that was an unexpected thing. So I went, but I kind of smiled humorously and came over and felt her shoulder, and I says, "Oh, you must eat a lot of chicken." She looked at me, she says, You're right. I do eat a lot of chicken. You could tell that in my shoulder." I just laughed. Anyway, yeah, you can feel this stuff. So eating these saturated thick fats, you wear them, and it can be felt in your tissues. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you.
Thank you. That was humorous too. Okay, Tamara, go ahead, unmute and ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Wonderful presentation. Dr. Clark, I just wanted to know if omega-3 in the bottle, is that safe to consume?
Okay, what about omega-3 in the bottle? There's a challenge with omega-3 in the bottle. Now, last time we said eat the oil is found in the olive. Maybe we should say eat the oil is found in the flaxseed. If I take flaxseed and I extract the oil only, then I have omega-3 in high quantities. But unless I add BHA, BHT, tocopherols, vitamin E, whatever, preservative to it, its shelf life is 6 weeks max, at which time it's rancid, because these polyunsaturated omega-3s are not very stable. They tend to degenerate quickly. Their double bonds acquire things they shouldn't acquire and lose things they shouldn't lose. What do they lose? Electrons. That's oxidation. They get oxidized. And so the other thing is, just like we talked about last week with olive oil, it's a boatload of nothing but pure fat. It lacks antioxidants. It lacks minerals. It lacks vitamins. It's just like sugar. It's just like sugar, and it has the same problems as sugar. And like we said in here, this talk, using soybean oil was worse for you than high fructose corn syrup because it caused fatty liver disease. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. So eat the flax, don't depend on the oil from a bottle, or the walnuts, or the chia seed, or the whatever. You know, you can get things in your garden that are high in omega-3. Purslane, it's a weed, but it's high in omega-3s.
Wow, eat the weed. Thank you. All right, so we move on. Thanks, Tamara, for that question. Nope, Dr. Clark, sometimes I purchase the ground flaxseed. I should purchase the one that is not grounded.
Yeah,
Should I?
yeah,
Okay.
right. So unless they add some preservative, which is no better for you than the rancid oil, then you're better off buying the flaxseed, and they don't last forever either. You kind of have to rotate your stock and watch its going out of use date. It's best used by date, because it'll go off in less than a year, I think. But anyway,
Can't stock up on that for too long.
yeah.
Thanks for the tip. Hey, Anasha, you can go ahead and mute.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Father's Day to the Fathers on Day program. Yeah, my question is, I listen with the different types of oils, but I'm just trying to find out because we're living where we have a lot of coconuts. If coconut oil or the coconut milk, not the ones that are processed, uh, which one would be
I'm sorry, on my end
better
anyway, you're breaking up a lot. So let me make sure I got the
to
question right.
use?
You're asking
Especially if you have
if coconut oil or coconut milk are better. Is that right?
yes.
Okay. Well, either product is very high in fat. The coconut milk, at least as we get it here in cans, is largely pressed coconut, meaning you don't get any of the fiber or the raw product. You get just mostly the liquid. That said, we do use a little bit of coconut milk in other recipes. The coconut oil is just plain the fat without anything. It's the same processed product, just like processed olive oil, corn oil, and so forth. You're much better off eating the entire coconut. You imagine trying to eat enough coconuts to get any quantity of oil, you're going to be eating a lot of coconut, and it's pretty fibrous, right? So you want to eat the natural product, and when you end up isolating it, you end up with problems. But you might be looking for something to go in a recipe. Last week we talked about substitutes. One of the things I guess I didn't mention a whole lot there was baking paper is a good thing to use instead of oil for keeping pans from sticking. But anyway, use the coconut oil on your skin or leave it in the coconut and eat it with all the rest of what God put together. Our advice from God through the prophet is not to use a lot of nuts, at least less than 10 to 15%. In fact, the actual advice is given in the context of a recipe that used a lot of nuts, and she said that recipe should have 1/10 to 1/6 of nuts and no more. And that wouldn't be the only recipe you'd be eating. So I have a friend that likes to treat cancer naturally, and one of his advice to his cancer patients is to totally get off nuts for a while until they get over their cancer, because he wants to eliminate the high fat contribution to cancer, which cancer definitely likes a high fat diet.
Okay. I trust that was enough for Nasha. We'll move on to Audrey. Go ahead. Arnhem.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for your presentation. I am a victim of fatty liver. And what I am interested in knowing is there any supplements that is worthwhile taking to help in this process to lower it? And how does our body make its own nitric oxide? Is it oxide? Nitric? Well, we need it anyway. Nitric something. I think it's nitric oxide.
All right. Supplements. In inspiration, the word for supplements is patent or patent nostrums. Patent means something you can get exclusive market rights on through a issued patent. Nostrums is something that makes you healthier or live longer. And they are discouraged. Why are they discouraged? It's no different than the products made by the pharmaceutical companies. In fact, the pharmaceutical companies have bought up a lot of the supplement companies just to make sure they have an edge on all markets of things that go in your mouth and supposedly make you healthy. Where in the Bible does it say, put this in your mouth and you'll get all well, you get all healthy? When Jesus was on earth, did he go around handing out pills? No. And so no, and most of the time supplements are toxic, and it's the liver that has to process them. And so you don't want supplements. What do you want? You want herbal teas and you want good food. What are the herbal teas that could help my liver? The herbal teas that would help the liver are the thistle family, milk thistle, for example. Foods that help are the cruciferous vegetables. And then other foods that help, and I mentioned this is pineapple because it's got bromelain, which is fibrinolytic. But the most important thing is just eating good food, eating stuff that was grown and eating it as grown. Eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. I remember one time we went down to Florida to the very bottom tip, and and the family that we stayed with there said, we want to take you shopping so you can stock up on food for the week because you'll be doing programs for our church. And I said, okay. And we went to a fruit and vegetable stand. Had a truck with a table and fruits out there, and they had one hand of bananas on there. And I says, well, you got more bananas? He says, no, that's all we got. I says, that's all you got? So I put that in the basket, and there were several things there that I filled this whole basket, and the host was like, how? Well, you sure you want that much? I says, oh yeah, this is what we live on. He's like, really? You eat mostly fruits and vegetables? I says, well, that's what we teach. Yeah, that's what we do. Most people, they think, okay, what am I going to eat for dinner? Well, I'm going to have an entree, and I'm going to have this cooked thing, and I'm going to have that dish. Go to a potluck. What do they have? Lots of entrees and but not lots of bowls of salad, lots of fruit and vegetables. It's mostly processed food, processed at home. And people think they have to get all fancy. You know, we're told in volume 7 of the testimonies. Well, actually, it's in the same quote in messages, manuscript releases, that we we'll end up in the end time dispensing with all recipes, because we'll learn that the diet that God gave Adam in his sinless state is the best diet for keeping the body in a sinless state. So, the more fresh fruits and vegetables you can eat, and then treating, I didn't really talk about treating the fatty liver, but hot and cold treatments over the liver, charcoal poultices overnight, lots of exercise we did talk about, all important for treating the fatty liver.
Okay. And I had another question. Oh, you didn't mention nitric oxide. Do we need that? Does our body make our own? And peroxide, does our body make our own hydrogen peroxide? And is that good for our liver?
Hydrogen peroxide. Just about every cell in your body has defense against hydrogen peroxide. So, no, if you want to avoid oxidation and oxidized lipids, then the product that will oxidize anything and make it dangerous for you is peroxide. So whoever came up with the idea that this is a health potion probably also sells vinegar as a health potion, red wine, chocolate, coffee, it's all lies.
Okay.
Before we're all done, all the lies will be out there. Everything that we ever knew was supposed to be good for us is going to be called poison, and everything we knew is bad for us will be sold as a cure. And this is all part of Timothy, where it talks about that the original diet will be outlawed. Anyway.
Okay, so
nitric oxide, it's made in your brain, it's made in cells. It's there to cause your blood vessels to dilate. If you want more of it, eating things like beets and beet tops definitely helps your nitric oxide. But for the most part, if you're eating the diet that we've recommended here, you don't need to go trying to increase sources of nitric oxide.
So with labored breathing, then how about colloidal silver? Will that help?
Colloidal silver is a good antibiotic that you probably only want to use when you need an antibiotic. Whether it's really a natural remedy is up for discussion. And so we're told in 2SM 346 that natural means used in accordance with God's will bring about supernatural results. We pray for a miracle, and the Lord directs the mind to some simple remedy. So I don't know if colloidal silver really falls in the category of a natural means or a simple remedy that God uses to get us well. I should do a whole talk on the philosophy of health, because the first question to ask when you get sick is not how much colloidal silver shall I take. The first question is, why am I sick? Why did God give me this call to self-examination? What is he trying to teach me? And how does he want me to either get better or take this disease as a call from him to change my whole direction in life? So anyway.
Well, you did mention mold and black mold, and you mentioned aspergillus, but it's a different kind of aspergillus, black mold. So that's my problem with breathing, is the black mold, and I don't find a recipe or a remedy for that anywhere.
You go to my website, under videos, I have a whole talk on mold and, just on mold, with recommendations for diet and lifestyle for boosting the immune system for getting rid of mold.
Oh, praise the Lord. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been so appreciated that you took the time to do that. God bless.
Sure. You're welcome. God bless you too.
Okay, we have two last hands raised, and there'll be no more because we're out of time. Actually, we're over our time. So let's have Anne followed by Joanne. Thank you.
I know I took a lot of questions.
It's okay, Audrey. All right, then you can unmute. All right, Joanne, go ahead. Thank you.
I thought you said Anne first. Okay, well, happy Father's.
Yeah.
Is she coming? Okay, you go.
I'm sorry, you may go if you want. Oh, yes, quickly, Dr. Clark. So you don't put any fat at all in your food? And I understand that according to what you read in Sister White book, there are some products that we can use in moderation, and there are some which are completely forbidden that we should avoid entirely. So, which means peanut butter, we can take it sparsely, cashew, and then maybe coffee. I don't know. So we have. That's why we have to be very well educated. But in anything, we have to be moderate. But in some stuff, we should put them aside entirely. And about the fat, do you put any fat in your food?
All right, so coffee is forbidden. It is something we wouldn't ever use for any reason whatsoever. The peanut butter, yeah, it's sparingly. She talks about, but she kind of pushes you toward almonds. What do we use for fattened foods? So we use nuts usually for cooking. We'll use nuts for adding fat, or nut butters if it needs to be mixed in. Like making granola, we might put a little nut butter in it. Or for a baking dish, if we want some fats, if we're trying to replace in a recipe some fats, we might use one of the nut butters. For other things like bread, we might put avocado on bread. We might put nut butters on bread, or we might put nuts and applesauce on bread rather than nut butters and applesauce on bread. The more you can chew the food yourself, the more you get out of it. And that's sort of a key thing. And yeah, so hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Oh, she finished?
Yeah.
Final question, Joanne.
Yeah, happy Father's Day, Dr. Clark. And
Thank you.
yeah, no, I have two things I didn't understand. So you say that the olive oil, even cold press and all that, that's not good for us?
Right. If you go back to our talk last week, you'll see my whole discussion on olive oil. It's quite extensive.
Yeah. Okay, so and then the other thing I didn't understand is oats and wheat. They killed the rat, but I thought oats was oatmeal.
Oh, well, I was talking about the fact that they don't make rat poison taste terrible to catch the rats, just like they don't make donuts taste terrible to catch the people. And the result is kind of similar. The people die a little slower, but...
But oats, when you say oats, that's oatmeal, right?
That's just what... So I have a bunch of poisoned oatmeal and poisoned wheat for killing rats. But I wasn't telling you that oats and wheat are bad. They are the attractants to the rat, just like the donuts are the attractants to the people, but they end up with fatty liver.
Oh, okay, that's what you meant. I got it now. Thank you so much. I guess it was a goofy question, but I couldn't understand it.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Well, thank you. So in other words, we got to eat our vegetable, our fruits, our nuts, our seeds, and make it simple, right?
Make it simple. There you go. That is it.
Yeah.
Right.
So you got recipes as well on your website?
Yes, recipes. That's right.
In your book that you sell, is there any recipes in there?
No recipe. Well, there are a couple, but it's not a recipe book.
You don't have a recipe book, okay?
No, remember I said we're told that eventually we won't need recipe books.
Okay. Make it simple. That's why. Yes, it is so simple. We complicate life.
Well, I'll tell you what. I was thinking about making a recipe book with 10 pages, The first 2 pages are how to make a good vegetable salad. This next 2 pages are about how to make good steamed vegetables. The next 2 pages are about how to make a good fruit salad. The next 2 pages would be how to eat fruit in its natural state.
Wow.
That's really good.
You
And the
gotta.
last 2 pages are on how to make nut creams to go on each of those if you want.
Wow. Well, you gotta buy it. I'll buy your book. I like it. In a small village, there's not much at the grocery store, so best to stay simple.
Yeah.
Fancy $50 there. There's most of the time you can't find the ingredients anyway. So.
Yeah, isn't that the case?
Well, thank you again. It's very nice.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the book, Dr. Clark.
Yeah.
The book is coming out.
No, the book is already out. My health book is on my website. You can either download it, you can download it and print it out, or you can. I have a few, and they have a few in Australia that you can buy, but it takes shipping and it's not cheap. But anyway, it's down there for free as a download.
Thank you very much.
So you said for the book, yeah, I was interested in buying the book. So you said if it's in Australia, expensive, but if you buy it from the States,
it's free on the website.
If you live in Australia, you buy it from the Australian source. If you live over here, you buy it from me, or Homeward Publishing. And you go to my website and you'll find my under book. You click on book, and or just scroll down. And you'll see the book. You click on there, and you can order one for the United States. You just can't order internationally from me unless you email me and I figure out the postage to your part of the world. We've sent them off. We sent them off to Africa, didn't we, Dawn?
Yes, we did. And yes, that was a little while ago, but I think everything works the same way. So it shouldn't be a problem.
Every one of the chapters in the book is available individually as downloads, and the whole book as a compilation is downloadable. So you can just, if you just want one chapter, you can download it and read it or print it out. That's all convenient, hopefully. And it's in different languages now. You go to the language section, we have it in Spanish and Portuguese and Dutch. It's not complete in Dutch yet, but getting there.
So if you don't make the 10 page book, and you put that on your website?
I should make the 10-page book, shouldn't I? Okay, let me put that on my list of things to do. 10-page book.
Mr. Giovanni is just saying that.
Put it on the website. That would work too.
Yeah, just as a download. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, we will not take any more questions. As we said, we have really exceeded our time. We thank Dr. Clark for today's presentation. And just a disclaimer, let me say this before you two pull us down, that this is Dr. Clark's research and his presentation, and we're not coming after any industry. Okay, yeah, I hope that disclaimer is out, because we don't have money to fight anyone.
What is the website?
It will be posted in the chat. Okay. Also, we would like to wish all the fathers, including Dr. Clark and all the fathers who are here, Brother Raymond too, happy Father's Day. We appreciate what fathers do. And we trust that there'll be more responsible fathers to keep the home and the family together. So let's pray for our fathers, and we thank God for those who have been fatherly to those who don't have fathers around, and also to their families. And so in closing, we'll ask Sharon to pray, and in a special way, please include a special prayer for fathers. Thank you.
Shall we pray? Loving Father, we thank you for the time we've spent learning how to take better care of our bodies. We thank you for Dr. Clark and his presentation. We thank you for the question, the participant, and all that happened today. Lord, as fathers celebrate Father's Day, please be with them. Help them to be the source of strength to their family. Thank you for what they do. Continue to be with us and bless us, Lord. If we've done or said anything that was displeasing in your sight, please forgive us. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.